Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. In this video, we will create some advanced flat list animations. I was inspired by Demest. He created this amazing carousel animation. I will show you my way of doing it in React Native by using the Animated API, FlatList, and Svg and MaskedView, as always. I'll show you how to fetch the movies from the movie database, plus I'll show you how to actually create this type of slider using snapToInterval, plus some small tricks in order to properly display the previous and the next slide. Before jumping into VS Code, I would like to thank you all for supporting this channel, especially to George and Pierre for buying me a coffee and supporting me. And by the way, if you'd like to support my work, the link to buy me a coffee and PayPal is down in the description. And now, let's play the intro and jump straight into VS Code and start building this amazing movies carousel. Alrighty guys, so I'm in VS Code here. I've already created the project using Expo, and I also created a couple of components here. So let me walk you through what we have right now. We have an API.js file which is exposing a get movies method responsible for fetching the data from the movie database, and I'm also normalizing the payload and returning title, poster, backdrop, rating, and so on. And a rating component that's visible here with the stars. That's receiving a rating number, and based on it is deciding how many field stars is gonna display. And then a genres component that's rendering this list of genres with a peel style effect. And inside the app we have movies and set movies, which is a useState hook. And when this component will be mounted, we will get the movies from the movie database, and we set the movies to the state. And here in the render, if there are no movies, we display a loading indicator. So is this dummy screen. So let me refresh so you see it here on the screen. And when we have data, we render a flat list, which is a horizontal flat list. We pass the movies as data, and the render item, it's a view that has a specified width, which is the item size defined here on top. That's 72% of the entire height of the screen. And inside it we have a view that's responsible for spacing the item. So if I'm doing here red, you'll see how this item is looking. It has some padding and some margins. And inside it I'm rendering the movie poster, I'm rendering the movie title, the rating and genres components, plus the movie description, which is kept at 3 lines. So this is what we are starting with. Now what I would like to do is to create this snapToInterval, or show you how snapToInterval actually works in a flat list. And for that, here inside the flat list, let's send snapToInterval prop, and we would like to snap on every item size. And this one will create this snapping at the start, and it's gonna snap at, for each particular item. And notice that we can scroll whatever we would like. And to avoid this and actually do a carousel style, we need to pass a deceleration rate of 0. And now we can now it's gonna move like a normal carousel, right? And another thing that I would like to do is to get rid of this bounce effect. So pass bounces false. and we have this this carousel to work with. And the next thing I would like to do is to animate the active slide. So I would like to move it upwards. And in order to do that, we need to change this flat list to make it an animated flat list. And on scroll to get the animated event. And for this animated event, from native event content offset X, we'll assign it to scroll X, and we'll also use the native driver for this example. And let's create the scroll X. So scroll X, it's React use ref, a new animated value starting from 0, and get the current. And also don't forget to say scroll event total, it's 16, so we'll have this event 60 fps. And now with this scroll X, we can interpolate it and move the active item. So here inside the render item, I will create an input range, which is index -1 multiplied with item size, index multiplied with item size, and index +1 multiplied with item size, right? So we'll get the previous, the current, and the next item. And index is not defined, so we can get the index from the render item method. And with this input range, we can create the translate y. And translate y will have a scroll X, will interpolate, pass the input range, and output range is gonna be 0, -50, so and 0. So move it up. And now we can make this inner container an animated view and pass this translate. So transform translate y. And now this is moved. And now when we scroll, we have this nice effect applied to the active slide. As you notice, in the first place, we had the active slide was in the middle, and we were also displaying a portion from the previous and the next slide. And in order to do that, we need I'll show you a trick. We basically need to create two dummy spacers that will be at the end and at the start of the list that is passed to the flat list. Each spacer will have a special width assigned to it. So basically here in the set movies, we would like to have a spacer, then the list of movies, and then again the spacer. So let's create this one here. So we'll have a key of left spacer, then movies, and then another key with right spacer. And for the spacer, we would like to have a special item size, right? So item size, which is gonna be the width of the screen minus the item size, everything divided by 2. So basically we'll take the remain space from an item size and divide it by 2, because we would like to also have it on the left and right hand side visible item, right? So that's why we divide it by 2. And inside this render, if we refresh now, we get an error because the dummy element, it only has the key. So we need to go here into the render item and check if the item doesn't have, let's say, poster. We would like to return this spacer, right? So we'll assign a width of spacer size. And now we have it created here. Let me show you how it's actually looking. So background color red and the height of 200. So it's right here, and it's creating this center effect for the active slide. It's basically offsetting the entire list. But now you notice that the translate y is not taking into account this dummy component. So we also need to offset the index as well. So instead of index -1, we have index -2, index -1, and then index. So basically this one will be the active slide. And now it's gonna work like magic. So we have the active slide in the middle, translated y -50, and then we have a little a portion of the previous and also the next item. And now if I remove the background color and refresh, this will start from the middle of the screen as well. Now the other part of this tutorial is to create a backdrop. And the backdrop will be basically a flat list that's gonna render the movies, of course, and inside it we will use a masked view that will display the movie backdrop that's taken from the API, and we'll mask it using an SVG. And we will move the SVG based on the scroll X position, as we are doing for the translate Y, basically. And more on that, we will also display a linear gradient to create this fade effect at the bottom of the backdrop. So let me start by importing the dependencies here. So we'll need a masked view, which is from MaskedView. We will also need SVG and rectangle from React Native SVG, and we will also need linear gradient from Expo linear gradient. And here, before rendering the animated flat list, I would like to create a new component called backdrop. And I know that this needs to have the movies and also the scroll X. So pass them as prop. And on top here, let's define this component. So backdrop, it's a component, it receives the movies and the scroll X, and it's gonna render a view for now. And this view, how this is gonna work, it's gonna, so let's start first by positioning this absolute, right? We'll define a width and the height of a backdrop height. And this backdrop height, we need to define it here. So backdrop height is gonna be height, it's 60% of the screen, right? And inside this, let's start by rendering the flat list with the backdrop posters, right? So we'll have a flat list. And this flat list will receive the data, right, which is movies, and we will also have a key extractor, which is item key, and we'll have a render item that's getting the item and the key. And how are we gonna do it? It's each item will be positioned absolute, so all of the item will sit on top of each other, and we will just play the masked view. And so let's start by returning here a masked view, and inside this masked view, let's have an image with a source of item backdrop. This backdrop is from the API, and let's apply some styles. So width, it's gonna be width, and height, it's backdrop height. And we also need a resize mode of cover. And we've said that the mask view should be positioned absolute. So all the items will be positioned absolute. So let's pass this position absolute. Now everything is starting to take shape, right? And before continue, let's render the linear gradient. So we'll have this this fade effect here. So linear gradient. This linear gradient needs to have colors. So colors is transparent and white. So we will start from white and end up in transparent. So hit save here, and also apply some styles. We'll have a width of width, height of backdrop height, and position absolute, and bottom 0. So we'll start from here, right? And this will create this fade effect. And now let's go back to the masked view. And as you can see, also React is complaining, hey, masked view should receive a mask element. And if you don't know how masked view is working, I've already created a tutorial talking about this masked view and how it's working. A link to this tutorial will appear somewhere on the screen. But for now, let me go to do this mask element view. Basically, it's an SVG, right? So it's an SVG here, and inside we'll have a rectangle that will fill the entire space. So for the SVG, we'll have a width of width, height, and a view box of 0, 0, width, and height. So x0, y0 with width and height. And for the rectangle, we like to start from x0, y it's also 0. We'll apply it a width of width and a height of height, and also a fill of red. This doesn't actually matter because we need to have a fill other than transparent in order for the mask element to work, right? And now we would like to, whenever we scroll to a particular item or we have an active slide, we would like to move this SVG to translate it on the x coordinates, right? So here inside, before actually doing it, we forgot about the dummy elements, right? So here we will check if the item doesn't have a backdrop, just return null. We don't care about the backdrop, right? And now let's define the input range for the translate x for the SVG. So translate x is gonna be the same. So we'll have an index -2 multiplied with item size, and then index -1 multiplied with item size. And for the translate x, we'll have a scroll x and we'll interpolate it. We'll pass the input range, and for the output range, we'll have -width and 0. And to be able to pass this translate x, we need to modify the SVG to be an animated SVG. And we can use the create animated component from animated API. So here, let's define the animated SVG. It's equal to animated create animated component by SVG. And instead of the SVG itself, let's use the animated SVG. And pass now the styles as transform and then the translate x that we've just created. And now if we scroll to the x, you'll see that we are also animating the mask. And because all the items are position absolute, so they sit on top of each other, whenever we scroll, we actually reveal with the mask the next image. And this is creating this nice effect. And I think what bothers me is this list, it's position too high. So let's start by from 100 translate. So basically I'm just moving it down, and yeah, this looks much better. And before wrapping up this tutorial, I got this question all the time: is this performant or not? So let me open up the performance monitor here, and you'll see this is running at 60 FPS. So we don't have any dropping frames. We don't have everything is 60 FPS. So I think that this will answer lots of questions that I've received till now. That was it, guys. Thank you so much for staying so long with me. I hope that you've learned something new, some new techniques or some new tricks and tips that you can apply to your existing projects or to new projects of yours. If you have any issues or comments, don't hesitate to leave a comment here down in the comment section. I'll do my best to answer all of them. Also, don't forget to subscribe and like this video if you found it useful. Other than that, see you in the next video. Bye guys.